Okay, hi everyone. I'm here with Nick Holt. I'm Ruth. We are foot nerds, and Nick has just finished his foot nerd training, week 12, which means that he completed his workshop. And we're here to debrief about his entire experience so far in foot nerd training, 12 weeks. And we're also going to talk about how his workshop went. And the purpose of the call is really to get to have have us as the internal leadership team witness Nick's accomplishments and achievements, which is incredible that we do this, and we commit 12 weeks, 1 hour a day to this topic and foot health, and then teaching what we have experienced to other people. So we want to make sure to always acknowledge, but we also want to give new foot nerds coming into the program some background and some tips and advice, and just to know what they're getting themselves into and any help along the way. And in that way, we continue to grow as a community and do better and better and better. So Nick, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're going to jump right in, and we have 3 questions. We're going to keep this to 30 minutes or less, but we have 3 questions for you. The first question just gives us an overview about what your experience was like in the first 6 weeks. And you can share however you want about that, but maybe add in some sweet success, some struggles, where you were and where you are now and where you are headed, and maybe why you wanted to do it. And then the second question will be around your workshop, and the third question will be tips and advice for new people coming in. So let's go ahead and start with your first 6 weeks.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay. So I think for me, the first 6 weeks, I really sort of came into the program with a pretty hyper focus around trying to solve my ankle tightness, stiffness from playing years of competitive basketball, and really feel like I've been kind of locked up for forever. And as a surfer now, I live in Costa Rica, and I've really fallen in love with this sport, surfing, and I've realized so much of what's holding me back is just this tension in my ankle. So this has been a sort of quest of mine for many years. And just to even back up even farther, I came from the finance world, and I was sitting in front of a computer for 7 years. And I remember when I left that job, I got into sort of fitness and health coaching sort of shortly thereafter. And I went to a conference, I remember, and I stood up, or I didn't stand up, I actually was sitting in the front row. It's a small conference of maybe 20 people. And the person who was leading said, okay, we're going to just do a little quick squat demo. And I knew I was really tight with my squat, so I didn't volunteer, and I ended up just getting chosen. And I went to squat, and I was maybe like a quarter or maybe a half squat. And he's like, no, okay, go ahead and squat. And I'm like, no, this is my squat. And it was a really eye-opening experience for me to realize just how much sort of limitations I had in my body. I was, at that time I had been sitting for the past 7 years. And so, fast forward 12 years now, I've definitely made some huge strides in improving my squat and my ankles. It's still a work in progress. And I think as far as specific takeaways, the most powerful element, I think, of the program, especially of the 6 weeks, is just really the dedicated hour-a-day consistency of showing up. And I've always done sort of ankle mobility or footwork, but it was never to the extent of the consistency that I did over these 6 weeks. And even the last 6 weeks of the program, and now I've taught my workshop, and now I'm kind of doing the program again because I'm realizing how much work I have to do. But just that emphasis on daily consistency and really understanding that SAID principle. I kind of get it from a muscle training adaptation perspective, but I never really understood it from a joint mechanic perspective, and especially the ankle and the foot, and how just the years of sitting, and even now I'm so much more cognizant of my sitting and chair time, and how that's really impacting everything down the chain and into my ankle and my foot. So Yeah, I mean, specific wins, I think, for all the like the science data nerds out there, I started around 5 or 6 centimeters. So that's about like 2 inches of ankle dorsiflexion. So like the needle wall test. And now I'm on around 8 on both ankles. So again, not ideal, not where I want to be, but it's definitely an improvement. I've improved significantly my squat depth and just the comfort of staying in a squat. Again, I think big wins, surfing. I used to have sort of SI joint pain or some knee pain and some Achilles stuff that would go on. That's completely gone. I can pretty much surf pain-free, and tennis as well. I still get it a little bit. I still get some low back stuff, but a lot of that stuff is cleaned up with my sort of daily dedicated effort. So I think just that consistency of showing up, and then also the precision of taking notes and actually being a lot more precise with what I'm doing and measuring whether what I'm doing is actually working. I think in the past, I had found a FRC stretch or a kin stretch here and like some Kelly Starrett mobilization there. And I would, I had some foot collective stuff and I just kind of piece it together, but I wasn't really attacking it with the like deliberately and with the precision that I did in this program. And I think that was like the most powerful element of just really getting precise with the measurements, the proof of work of actually seeing if what I was doing was moving the needle or not. And then just the community. Yeah, I think the community of like-minded foot nerds, with ideas and inspiration and helping each other. So it was a really good journey and certainly one that I realize is not going to end anytime soon because there's a lot of work to be done. And but now I have sort of a roadmap and I have a lot more confidence that I can solve this problem that I came in with.
Yeah, a couple of things that you said I think are worth noting, which is that we are swimming in information, like really great information. We have access to so much good information, whether it's Kelly Starrett or just so much information, and then actually putting the consistency is so much more intense than you think it's going to be, right? So the actual hour of dedicated work on your own self with the measurements and noticing your blind spots, for me, just like actually doing the work. It almost seems like, well, if you have seen the information, just like if you Google it, you must know it, but you don't internalize it or integrate it in a consistent way. So I think that's one thing that's worth noting. And then you talked about going through the actual 6 weeks once and now starting again. And I think just want people to know that is something I don't think a lot of foot nerds even realize, is that you pay your enrollment fees and then you have access to keep beginning again without like re-enrolling, in the course again and paying fees. Like you have access to all of these people and the material, and it's like a glue that can keep you coming back to begin again. So I think those are really important things to just share, because I find that even though I work with all of you regularly, a lot of people don't realize that they can access the material over and over again, including all of the new updates, because as we get information from you all, then we can incorporate that right away and update and make it better. And so I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think one thing to add there is like there's just something as simple as just videotaping yourself. And it seems like crazy, but when you actually just witness yourself and you just see things differently, and when you also have other people seeing your movements, you just see these blind spots you're not aware of. I mean, I think you could probably any sport, surfing and tennis, for me, whenever I see video footage, it's always so helpful to see those things that you might think you're in a certain position, but you're definitely not. So it actually can be quite humbling, really.
Yeah.
Once you get over that humbling aspect of it, it's so helpful because you can actually get, I think you can get quicker response from your body, because you kind of know what to look at, and you know what to do
Right.
based on that footage. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, and overcoming the fear of doing those videotapes and actually allowing yourself to be humbled also is so amazing, because you learn so fast. Like your brain just wants to learn, and see, getting that biofeedback like that is brilliant. And then some things you're humbled by, and other things you're like, wow, I'm way farther along than I thought I was. And so that can be surprising too, right?
True.
So let's go to question number 2 then. So congratulations on your workshop. Maybe just take us through the nuts and bolts, and then things that you really loved about the workshop, things that you maybe want to change later, feedback, and then maybe where are you headed, and what are you going to do with all of this going forward?
Yeah, so I think when I originally signed up for the program, I was actually pretty excited about this element of the program, that it had a teaching component. And for me, I actually have done some in-person teaching and seminars. I live in this little surf town. I teach a surf fitness seminar at one of the surf camps. I hadn't done it in years, and sort of with COVID and then leadership changes. So I hadn't been in person. So part of like going into this program, I was actually pretty jazzed up about actually getting back to being with people in person, because I definitely missed that. And so, yeah, I think the nuts and bolts of it was, I originally kind of went through the template in the program, sort of laying out, 4 or 5 different elements. And then it just started to get kind of complicated on which screens to do and how to structure it. And then I watched Nick and I think it's Mike on one of their workshops, and I just it flowed so well, and it was so clear, and it was so concise, and it was just, there was a hardware sort of reset, and then there was software programming, and it was brilliant. So I really just copied that model. So I basically started to get specifics. I just started with some, foot stuff, plantar reset, and then I went into some toe yoga, and then we did some ankles, we did the ankle test, and then we did some hip assessment screens, rotation, and then I actually ran out of time. So I scheduled an hour and a half, and it was a brand new facility. The other part too is I'm in talks with a chiropractor who's in town, who's a friend, and he had just built out this new facility. So I was actually really excited to do it. He has a little gym, kind of open space, free weights, a couple squat racks, some TRX stuff. And then he has just this big open space, and he actually built a cold plunge on the back deck. And so I was really excited to do the workshop. And then we ended up doing a cold plunge with half of the participants. So I ended up getting 15 people, and 7 or 8 ended up doing the cold plunge. We got it down to about 35 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's, 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. It's pretty cold. One guy stayed in for like 20 minutes. Most of us were like 5 to 8 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was a little concerned because it was his first time.
That was his first time?
First time, but he just got into the zone, and he was just in his own little meditative world. And yeah, it was cool. So I was excited to do it at this space. And I think, I think feedback, my wife was there, and it was great because she was actually videotaping. So I have a bunch of footage that I'm trying to compile that I'm going to be putting out. And she was wonderful. And she helped with some of the admin, checking.
Oh, we lost you. Oh, no. Okay, we're back. We just had a little hiccup. So Nick, please.
No big deal. So I was saying that Julie my wife was really helpful, because she sort of served the role of admin and checked people in and made sure people had paid, and I had done some prepayment stuff with PayPal. So just coordinating all that was really helpful. So I could just kind of get into my own, excuse me, into my own space and really deliver a great workshop. I think the feedback that she had for me was that it was the beginning, I think, was a little like, I have this kind of goofy and playful side, and I actually went in and I wanted to have it be playful and light, but I think I was so focused on delivering the content that I came in and there was this kind of like heavier energy, and I felt like I was kind of just talking at people for the first 10 or 15 minutes, and it just felt a little serious. And so I think if I would have done it again, I think I'm going to do it again. To answer that question, I really really enjoyed it. I think the content is so powerful, and you know, people are just eye-opening stuff where people never put the connection between feet and hip and knees, and just there were light bulbs going off for people. It was really helpful. So I will do it again. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it with like a dance party, and like just put on some music, or just put on some like weird music and just start dancing and just connect the dots of like, this is foot and hip work right here, you know? So like, and just lighten the energy a little bit, because I think it was a little serious. I kind of told the story, kind of how I shared a few minutes ago around, you know, I'm playing basketball, my ankles were locked up, and how that affected my knees and my hips. But so I think the feedback there was just to sort of infuse it with a little more playfulness and light. Mm-hmm. And she also told me to smile more, to like bring out more of that lightness. Yeah. So I think, and then the other thing too is really becoming aware of verbal tics, like and I just have these sort of habits, and I think we all do. And I think putting ourselves out there and even just having this conversation allows us to sort of hone that communication skill, which is really powerful. I mean, I think, you know, obviously, I think the better communicator you are, the more powerful you are, the more presence, the more impact you can have, especially as foot nerds. We want to change the world and impact lives. And I think if we can communicate better without uhs or ums, or there's just a few verbal tics for whatever reason, almost subconscious, that I do, that I was made more aware of. So kind of working on some of those things as also feedback for the next one. And I don't know if we got cut off last time, but I ran out of time too. So adding a 30-minute block, and and having the cold plunge was kind of a cool element. There were people, I think, who were there just for the cold plunge. Mm-hmm. So I liked having that sort of element to the workshop to sort of as like a, you know, a final thing to look forward to, or some people were freaked out by it. But I think for the right person, it was a nice sort of added benefit. And actually, I might even maybe charge more. I think there's a model to charge for the content and then maybe have other things sort of associated with it. But I think a 2-hour block would make the most sense if I were to do it again, or when I do it again. Yeah.
That I really love the idea about a dance component, you know, especially after you've introduced yourself, because everybody is a little, especially when we're first teaching new content and such, it makes sense that we're focused on getting the material right and making sure that everything's flowing, and then introducing a little bit. I was going to say earlier about how when we're moving our bodies and our joints in dance, that's where you can really tell where tension is, and where the body just naturally will let go of certain tensions when you hear great music and it's fun and you're laughing, and then the body just responds involuntarily, you know?
Yeah.
So I love that idea. And then also having an a la carte, you know, people could really show up at the end if they wanted to do the cold plunge. Or I think Selena in Australia, she was a foot nerd in the year-long program. She runs a whole thing called Vivacious Escapes now, and she does really cool stuff like that, where you can go for 3 days, or you can show up for a few hours, and there's a little a la carte menu of sorts where you can charge for that.
Yeah, because I do think there's almost you know, opportunities. I mean, I think that the content here is so rich, and I think you could almost it almost felt like I could have broken it up to just foot, toe, ankle stuff. And then obviously the hips connected and talk about that, but almost have the hip be a completely different workshop in itself, and get
Like
all the different rotational abilities. And then maybe, have like another level where it's like a level 2,
yeah.
where you have essentially the building block. So, the tripod foot, and creating torque with the hips, and then you're just playing, right? That's like the whole thing is play, but you have this foundation of,
What about a series, right? So
yeah.
a series like foot, feet, hips, integration type of series where yeah, that's a great idea. I'm inspired.
Yeah, and actually, someone I'd kind of been, because when I originally had the conversation with my friend Bruce, who's a chiropractor, has a space, I was just starting this program. I kind of had that idea of doing these monthly workshops and kind of addressing, the foot health, obviously first because I'm in this program, but also doing some stuff around shoulder health, or even doing stuff specifically to surfers or to tennis players or to pickleballers, to have that model, but really take a systems-based approach and really take it from a very clear, concise, kind of playful way that I think the program, the foot nerd training, really laid out, which I thought was really cool. So overall, it was a cool experience. It was great. I think, yeah, just having completed that, I think was just felt great, because I was definitely, there was, a lot of the administrative stuff leading up to it, I think wasn't too much fun. A lot of the coordination back and forth. Oh, I can come. Yes, I'd love to come. Okay, here's the payment. Oh, and then people go radio silent. So just the logistical challenges, having someone to help certainly helped in person with my wife, but even having somebody else, maybe even doing some of that initial sort of coordination, sign up, registration work, I think would have been really helpful, because it took a lot more time than I was anticipating.
Yeah. So just quick like 1 or 2 word question feedback. How many? 15 people.
15 people.
You charged how much?
I charged $20, but I also incentivized people. They could prepay, and it was 10 for locals, or if they prepaid. So I would say about 70% of the people prepaid and paid 10, and the rest paid 20.
Was there a balance element? Did you have soulmates or equipment for balance, or did you do anything like that?
Yeah, I had structured a 10-minute balance block and like play block at the end, and we ran out of time. I have my own balance, my foot nerd balance beam that I brought, and I shared, and I allowed people to come up afterwards and play with that. And I had a couple pairs of toe spreaders, just personal. I didn't have anything for sale or anything available. Just my own personal beam and toe spreaders. Okay.
And then the last question would be, what tips, advice, insights do you have for somebody coming into a 12-week program like this that you could share from your experience that they couldn't possibly know or understand yet?
Yeah, I think I've thought about this a little bit. I think the most powerful element is really the environment, like just setting up those environmental triggers. I have this sort of space set up where I have mats, so I can have conversations like this where I don't have to sit in a chair. I have these mats, so I'm kind of reminded that it's comfortable to spend time on the ground or do some of my homework. I have my beam that's like sitting out. So I think just having those subconscious environmental things in your environment, I think really, really was powerful. I think also for me, I have a whiteboard over here, and I like tech and I like using spreadsheets, and I'm not like adverse to technology, but there is something powerful about having a whiteboard or even a piece of paper, something where you actually have like your experiments and you can go off and you can kind of check, X out the actual work done. And when you see that, it's like, I think it's the Seinfeld message or method, or James Clear, I think, talks about like never breaking the chain, right? It's like, you just don't just keep marking those X's off. And I think when you see that, again, it's in that subconscious, and it's that environmental reminder to keep going. And I think every little bit counts. I didn't really, like I was talking about earlier, like appreciate the STED principle and how much time I was sitting and how that impacted the limitations that I had. And now, even when I'm going for walks, or I'm just finding time to like squeeze in a few squats here and there, a few ways to stretch my hip flexors, there's a few ways to manipulate my toes, just to, get those ranges of motion and get those connections between the brain and the muscles. And so I think every little bit counts is what my big, because I think we're all busy, and there were certainly days where I didn't get my stuff done. And there was one day where we had painters in our apartment. And so my mats were all covered up, and sure, I could have done my homework somewhere else, but I ended up not getting it done that day. And it was just a really clear example of like, my environment was kind of thrown up in chaos, and I wasn't, and stuff came up. And so I didn't get my stuff done. So it's really, really important to have those environmental pieces and prompts.
Yeah. Prompts and grace. Give yourself a little bit of grace, because when we're trying to go at something with real commitment and clarity, we can be hard on ourselves. So finding a balance of like not being too soft on yourself. Like, you set a goal for yourself, you want to do what you set out to do for yourself, and and then allowing grace within that for your own body and what you're doing, because it's pretty intense 12 weeks. So congratulations, Nick.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, we're going to end here, nerds. So thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Ciao for now.